In the 1950s, the materials test reactor tested fuel rods that were bent. The fluid test reactor had no fuel rods, just a pump, a pot, and a pipe. Nuclear engineer Sam Beall recalls his work on two early nuclear reactors, and he remembers how success was sometimes celebrated in traditional, spirited Tennessee fashion.
At that time, the idea of forming a material test reactor had been funded, and everybody at Oak Ridge at that time was working on the materials test reactor, the MTR, that was eventually built in Idaho. So I was responsible for what's called a hydraulic mock-up, which was really an assembly just like the reactor, with tanks and a grid inside for control rods and so forth. We were testing the flow of water through the fuel elements. And we found that the pressure was so great, the fuel elements, which were flat, would bend like that in this mock-up test. And Eugene Wigner said, well, why don't we make them bent to begin with? That way, don't have to worry about them bending. After a year or more, Alvin asked me to change that mock-up into a reactor because we had fuel elements that had been built in the meantime with those curved plates in it. We had enough so that we could do a critical experiment in this MTR mock-up. And we did that, made it critical. Everybody's very nervous when a reactor's made critical because it could get away. So we had a WAG technician who, right at the time of criticality, blew up a bag and popped it. But after 6 months there, Alvin Weinberg, who had always had an idea that was very revolutionary, and that is, instead of having a reactor with fuel rods and having to dissolve them back into a solution and separate the critical things, he said, well, why don't we start with a fluid fuel reactor? We'll use uranium sulfate instead of uranium rods. So he asked me to build a reactor that could use a fluid uranium sulfate. So we did build one in about 18 months' time that had a tank about this size, surrounded by heavy water, with a pump that circulated the fluid through a heat exchanger, which made steam and could be directed to a turbine, electric system. Eugene Wigner called the reactor pump, a pot, and a pipe. Anyway, in 1952, that reactor went critical. And for the celebration, which we always did when a reactor went critical, Alvin was there with a satchel, and he reached in his satchel and pulled out a bottle of Jack Daniels. He said, Sam, when pilots go critical in Chicago, they drink red wine, but when they go critical in Tennessee, we drink Jack Daniels. So he passed the bottle around, everybody took a swig.